What's up, guys? We're going to make a quick video today, add a little bit of value, shake things up a little bit, and make just a supplemental video to talk about health and fitness sales. What else? One of the businesses I was involved in, health and fitness business, one particular manager ran the PT department of this business. And his philosophy, when he went to train his sales staff, his PT staff, he always said, make a friend. Okay. Now, on one hand, I agree with that philosophy. Yes, part of our job, even as health and fitness professionals alone, not to mention the sales part, is to make a friend, for sure, right? Building relationships, building rapport, creating experience. All that stuff I totally agree with. Although I don't full-heartedly agree. And let me explain. This particular manager was not the most thorough in training his PT staff on how to sell properly. He had a lot of turnover, didn't hire very well, and it was my general opinion, my observation, that he was just taking shortcuts. He did not really spend time to adequately train his people, and I don't know if that's because he didn't know how to do it himself or simply because he just didn't feel like doing it because it requires a lot of work and a lot of effort. But as I've talked about in other videos, daily sales training is an absolute must. It's not good enough to meet once a month and say, hey, let's have a team meeting and talk generally in the macro about sales. We need to spend, it's cool to do one of those meetings once in a while and get everybody on the same page from a logistical standpoint and a philosophical standpoint. However, when it gets down to the nitty gritty, you have to be able to put it in practice, and that requires daily role playing. It requires, daily huddles. It requires sitting down and going through different sales scenarios to get better, and going through and missing a few clients here and there, or a few prospects, and coming back with the rest of the team or the sales manager or the management in general and saying, okay, I missed, what could I have done better? And then talking that through and trying a few different other rebuttals or methods or approaches. Well, this particular guy really wasn't about that. And this particular business did not like the approach of table closes. Table closes simply mean, they looked at it as old school. It's like the old school table approach of sales where you bring somebody in the room, you sit down with them, and you close them without them ever leaving the entire presentation. They view that as an antiquated sort of old school way of doing things because, in my opinion, they didn't train their staff how to do it. And the reason why they didn't train their staff how to do it is because it requires a lot of time, and your team actually has to be good, and they have to be trained very well to do it. However, it's really the only way if you're running a business, because if they're not good enough to close anybody anywhere at any time, you're not maximizing the potential of your team, and you're missing a lot of results. And no business that I know can afford to lose any sales. A table close is not a bad thing, guys. It's not even old school. It's just the way to do it. There's a process to do it. The reason why this particular business didn't want to do it was because, like I said, it required a lot of work to train the people to do it, and it requires time. And it's not the table close itself that has a stigma, or that should have a stigma associated with it. What makes a table close potentially bad, in other words, some people deem it as being, oh, this is high pressure, they associate with it, you end up in an office by yourself, blah, blah, blah. That's not inherent in a table close or in a scenario where you're in an office with somebody. No, it's the salesperson, it's the health and fitness professional that dictates whether they come across as being salesy or pushy or high pressure. If it's done properly and you're approaching as a coach or as somebody that's trying to help them, a health and fitness professional, you're absolutely not going to come off as being pushy or salesy, and therefore the table close will be necessary, because believe me, my style of closing is ultimately a table close. I don't like to get up while I'm got my client emotional and I'm in a moment with them and we're really having a heart-to-heart and I'm coaching them and they're listening and we're building rapport. Why am I going to interrupt that to leave the room or whatever else and have to restart again? That doesn't make any sense. If you're performing the sales presentation properly, you're building value, you're building commitment, you're asking a lot of great open-ended questions, you're doing an uptake, or an intake rather, that is very valuable to that person. They're going to feel listened to if you're doing it properly. They're going to feel appreciated. They're going to feel like you're customizing an experience for them, because you are. And that goes a long way. So why would they came to you as a coach for your advice, for your expertise. Why are they going to see that as being high pressure? Unless the salesperson or the health and fitness professional comes off as high pressure. It's not inherent, what I'm saying, in that sort of approach of the tablecloths. What I do encourage new health and fitness sales professionals to do is to, at the beginning, until they're good enough, get them out on the floor for 5-10 minutes, take them through a light workout, that sort of thing. If you're selling personal training, for example, that's okay. You can do that. You don't have to. If you're good enough, you don't need to do that. The way that I do things is highly effective, and that's how I teach and train all my sales staffs how to perform it, because I want them to be able to sell for their business or their own personal business at any person, anytime, any place, any scenario. And the only way to do that is to get them good at everything. And if they're good at everything, they can adapt and morph to any situation based off of what the scenario calls for. The other particular thing that this PT manager did or said was, he referred to my style as sitting in a room and asking a bunch of questions. Now, that is the equivalent to calling a digital marketer someone who just sends emails. Therefore, I found it to be insulting. I don't know if he meant it to be that way or not, but it was insulting, because what I do is a highly specialized skill set and requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience to do. And the reason why he said that, the reason why he did not like my approach, because if he approached it the way that I did, he would have to train all his people how to do it properly. And I don't think this particular gentleman really wanted to do that. Therefore, his entire sales training strategy for his new PT staff was to onboard them by going, make a friend, and also we'll sell through assessments. That'll be the approach. We'll use assessments to sell through. That way, it's a shortcut. I don't have to, some people will buy just because you show them assessments and how bad they do at it. That was kind of the approach. Presentations. Any good quality sales presentation in the health and fitness industry is going to require that you do some assessments anyway. But it's a very minute part of it. What about all the other approaches? Approach as a coach. Selling on value, selling on commitment, selling on fitness and health. What about all those? All those have to be blended, and it needs to be put in certain places, specific places, and certain things need to be said during the sales presentation for it to work properly. And this is why I would close, and the people that I train would close 50, 60, 70% of the time. And his staff would close at, we'll say, 13 to 18% of the time. Sometimes lower than that. To me, that was a reflection of his approach and lack of sales training, which is why I'm always, guys, I'm a big believer in constantly sales training, which is why you have me. If you are a manager or individual health and fitness practitioner, any way, shape, or form, and you don't have the time or the effort to put forth to train your staff properly, this is where I come in. This is where my courses come in, the sales modules come in. Because if you don't do that and you're taking shortcuts, it will reflect in your deals. I promise you. I have a lot of statistical evidence for this. And lastly, sitting in a room and asking questions is not what the sales presentation is about. Yes, we ask a lot of questions. How else? That's what sales are. Questions. Selling isn't telling. Selling is asking questions and listening. Furthermore, you never sit there, at least I don't, and rattle off 20 questions. I have a needs analysis. I conduct a very thorough one. That's the only way you can perform the sales presentation properly, is focusing on the needs analysis in that process and your client and their needs. But it's definitely not an instance where you go and you just rattle off question by question in a robotic way and there's no context to it. No, every question is asked with a purpose. There's a reason why we're asking that questions. I ask the same type of questions every single time, and then sometimes I ask additional ones depending on the client. But there's a rhyme and a reason to why I'm asking that question. There's a context to it. It's situational. There's something I'm trying to find out. There's an emotional hot button I'm trying to find or to uncover, and then I want to press that. It's not just asking questions for question's sake. I want you to understand that, because that is the key to selling. We're taking them in a direction we want them to go. We're leading them with questions. Selling isn't telling, therefore, I'm not telling them what to do. I'm not on a pedestal looking down on them. I am asking questions and leading them with those questions to the promised land, if you will. Where they want to go anyway, they came to me for health and fitness answers, solutions to their problems, um, and that's my job to show them that. And lastly, super important, it's a distinction. You may not have recognized this before, but it's very true. At the beginning, I said that this particular manager said to make a friend. Yes, we want to make a friend. We discussed that. However, not quite. Do we want to build rapport? Absolutely. Are we building a relationship? Is that part of it? Of course we are. We're relating to each other. We're in the moment with each other. We're listening to each other. We're having a conversation. I'm coaching them as a health and fitness professional. They came to me for counsel, and I'm giving that to them. However, is it easy for you to say no to a friend as opposed to someone else? I think so. Is that a good thing if you're selling? If you're in sales and you're selling your health and fitness services and products, do you want it to be easy to say no to you? I think not, and that's the distinction. Gentlemen or ladies, do you want to be in the friend zone with a woman that you want to be romantically involved with? I ask you that. That is an absolute no, correct? And ladies, are you romantically attracted to a guy that you can see as a friend? Absolutely not. Therefore, you do not want to be a friend of this person. You want to be their coach. There's a difference. You want to be the expert. They came to you to seek your counsel and your expertise. From the time that you're introduced to the very end when you're closing that deal, there is no doubt in anyone's mind who is steering that ship, who is conducting that tour and that sales presentation. You are the expert. They came there to see you, and now you're taking them in the direction they want to go. Yes, are you going to be friendly? Of course you are. But there's a difference between being friendly and being a friend. That's different. You have an edge to you. You're there for a reason. You got a backbone. It's not easy to say no to you. That's the difference. Small distinction, unbelievably important.